Hi everybody and welcome. Thank you for coming back, or thank you for joining us for the first time. We are doing our ups and downs for each episode of Star Trek Discovery this season. It's all fairly straightforward. If we like something, we give it an up. If we don't like something, we send it away. We get rid of it. It's gone. It's down. But overall, what we're going to do is just go through the episode bit by bit. This week we're looking at episode 8 of season 3, The Sanctuary. Spoiler straight at the start, and it's going to sound like a bad thing, but it really isn't. This episode was fine. It was grand. It was, you know, I didn't not like it. I didn't love it. It was, I'm trying to think of a few other examples. It was, you know, take the original series episode Miri. You remember it? It was fine. Take the Next Generation episode Suspicions. You remember it? It was fine. And I could go on and give more examples like that. And I feel that this is going to go down in Star Trek Discovery history as exactly that. Fine. The reason behind that is not an awful lot happens. Now some stuff does, and we're going to go through it now really quickly, but this is not me slating this episode, okay? So, here we go. Starting with the first up. Our first up of the week goes to, thankfully, the first scene of the episode. Now, this is the scene that was teased last week, and it was also teased in the photos that were released last week. It's the scene between Culber and Georgiou. So we know that something's going on with Georgiou. Now, there was a few suspicions along the way that maybe David Cronenberg, again, he has a character name, don't care. What's better than David Cronenberg? We suspected that he had potentially done something to her that had caused this issue, but it's really getting quite bad at this point. Culber is quickly becoming one of my favourite doctors in the history of Star Trek. He's completely no nonsense and he's completely straight talking. One of my favourite exchanges from this entire scene is, if I had time, I'd poison your children. If I had time, I'd have some. Cannot overstate how good Wilson Cruz is in this series. I think he's bringing an absolute blinder of a game. I think the show is better for having him. I think Michelle Yeoh in this scene as well. There's still a little bit of, I say hammy Georgiou, but that's not actually a criticism against Michelle Yeoh. It's more just come on now, give us a little bit more. But that's something, it doesn't warrant it down. I think there's an awful lot more coming with that. So overall, this scene is an up for me. In the teaser as well, we finally get introduced to Osira, who has been teased for a few episodes now. Now, we know that in this season, the Emerald Chain is going to be the big bad, if you like. Now, we haven't really met much of them yet. We've heard a lot about them from Rin, from Tolor. You know, who are they? What are they doing? Other than, are they just the baddies? And again, the easiest comparison that I can make in Star Trek history is the Orion Syndicate, who, again, we don't really know very well and haven't seen an awful lot of. It's very much like organized crime. But here, meeting Osira for the first time, we get to see there's plenty of metaphorical mustache twirling going on. I mean, she's clearly a villain. There is no nuance to this character. Totally fine. Sometimes it's nice just to have a baddie. I was about to say it's nice just to have, an out-and-out Gul Dukat, and then I had to stop myself because he's probably the most fleshed out villain in all of Star Trek history. But we see Osira, what's her first act? She sort of gives herself a slap on the back for being such a good aunt to Tolor, then feeds him to a transworm. I like it. That for me is an up. I like the fact that she's just nasty. She's not here to mince words, and she's not here to be anybody's friend. Yeah, that's refreshing. Yeah, I'm okay with that. Okay, I really like this next bit, but I will understand if people didn't like this next bit, and that's picking what word to say. Now, I think if you've been following this series of videos at all, you will know that I am such a fan of Saru. I love Captain Saru. I am loving his arc this season. I'm loving Doug Jones this season. I love Doug Jones. He's going through, what do we say? Is it execute? Is it hit it? Is it manifest? No, it's not manifest. Don't do manifest. Manifest is bad. They're walking along. Tilly has stepped into the role of first officer now, and one criticism that I saw of this episode that I think it's fair, it's not going to get it down, spoiler, but I think it's a fair criticism, is that she doesn't yet seem like first officer. She more feels like a yeoman, or someone of the Janice Rand ilk, as opposed to someone of the Riker ilk. Now, it's not a criticism because this is her first day, so total understanding there. But I did really enjoy their walk through the corridor. Poor Linus has been confined to quarters because he's shedding. Linus is clearly the kind of background gag of the season, and I'm totally on board with it. And I love just how quickly they shoot down Manifest. Hit it belonged to Captain Pike. Saru tries execute. The entire bridge sort of looks at him. Yeah, sure, okay, that's sweet, that's inspiring. Sorry, spoiler up for all of this. I really enjoyed it. I was presented with another criticism that says this is a joke lifted from Lower Decks, and you know what? It is a joke lifted from Lower Decks. I did think it worked. I wouldn't want them to overdo it, but in the moment, yeah, that got a giggle out of me, and that to me was enough for this scene. This week, who we finally get back is Rin. Now, I say finally, it's been 2 episodes, but I do like Rin because he seems already to be a fully fleshed character, and potentially that sounds like a bit of a strange thing to say, but when you have a character who's introduced so quickly, you might feel like, are they shoehorned in, or are we just to take it for granted that, oh, this person is X or Y or something, and that's fine. There's a difference when you have somebody who seems to be, if he ends up not being a main character and maybe a recurring character, that's okay. Not so much a villain. I suppose this goes a little bit against what I said about Osira, but Osira's a villain. We don't really need as much of a fleshing there because they're not painting her in a 3D way. Rin, they are painting in a 3D way. When you have Rin bursts into the ready room and goes, who's the captain? And also Tilly, brilliant. Obviously, we love the exchange between the two of these because of course they're married in real life, and you can see that chemistry straight away. It's the kind of stuff that, I mean, I won't say you can't act it because I'm absolutely certain you can act it, but it just feels nice. That entire scene, you have Rin who's very, very confident when of course we know he isn't confident, and you have the way he speaks to them. He really cares. He cares deeply, and it's just really refreshing to have a supporting new character come in like this. I suppose not entirely unlike Book. I really like Rin in this. Rin is getting an up from me. I really hope that we see more of him. I really hope that he gets a bit more to do. I will come back to him now in a little while, especially when we talk about him and Detmer. That's a scene that warrants a discussion. But overall for this episode, great to have him, great to see what he can do. Really looking forward to more of him. Now guys, we're going to come to our first and probably biggest down of the episode, and that down is Book's story. He gets, hailed from his brother Kahim, to come back to the planet of Quajon because the Emerald Chain are on the way. Okay, yeah, fine, solid. Now, what do we know about Book so far? He is very much a conservationist. They're all about protecting animals, protecting the environment. Cool, yep, totally on board. It's all good. Now we get back to Quajon and we can see that the whole planet is effectively the sanctuary from the name of the episode. Again, all good. And that's it. Osira turns up and she's being a bully, and bully makes people do things. People have conversations. Now, alright, am I being very harsh? Potentially I am. If you think back to the ups and downs that Trek culture did for Star Trek Picard. And you will remember the episode Nepenthe, and Adam raised a really good point in that episode. It's that the episode itself was quite good, but where it fell in the season was not great. And that's the same complaint I have about this episode. It's that this is episode 8 of a 13 episode season, and it grinds to a halt. Nothing happens. And if it was maybe episode 2 or 3, you could kind of forgive that a little bit, but this really does feel like they're running the clock out a little bit, which is a shame, because really enjoy David Ajala in this episode. Burnham is really good in this episode. She feels like the way you would expect a Starfleet officer to act in this episode. She goes along as an observer. Yes, of course, she does get involved in the action, but somebody's shooting at her. Totally fine, and she feels potentially the most professional she's felt in the entire season so far. So I'm actually really enjoying Burnham in this episode. Everyone is good here, but the sum of the parts doesn't equate to a strong storyline. That's my biggest complaint. That's why it's getting it down. It's that this is all a bit sort of fluff. It's all, we don't really discover much about Book that we didn't already know. All right, so we know he had a different name while he was on Kwai-Jon. We know that family means something a little bit different here. Obviously, he and Kahim are brothers, but as Book himself says, that is a little bit deeper on this planet, and that's all fine. But for what seemed like in the beginning of the episode a really exciting, worrying, we've got to get back there or devilment will ensue, it just sort of fell, I guess, a little bit flat for me. And it did feel like, it felt like the 50 minutes for this episode took a lot longer than it should have. That's it. My down really is just, okay, we did that. Now, one big up for me this episode is Osira's ship. Now, you'll know from previous episodes where I've spoken, if you've been watching along, and if you haven't, I've got a big thing for ships, okay? I am one of those people that put on Star Trek the Motion Picture, put on Enterprise in dry dock, and I will just blubber away for about 7 or 8 minutes. That is not an exaggeration. I literally have video evidence. I've been a little bit on the fence about kind of detached parts of ships. I was kind of wondering what's the point a little bit. Looks cool, kind of what's the point? But the Viridian, for me, feels really, really, I don't want to use the word cool, but I really do want to use the word cool. But it feels not just like a ship, it feels like kind of a battle station. You get real angry energy off this thing, and the way that it's aligned, it's got a really nasty, really vicious look to it. I loved it. I absolutely loved that ship. So that itself gets an up from me, and there's another up in regards to this ship. So there's another up, Chris, if you're paying attention. Detmer this week is getting an up. So this is what I mentioned when we were talking about Rin. I want to bring this back. Rin joins Detmer on Book's ship. Also, just lovely. Grudge jumps into Rin's lap. Rin's clearly not a cat person. That's okay, I'm a dog person myself. Loved this scene. This is a culmination of Detmer's struggles throughout the season. We've seen her really battling. I mean, it's trauma. She has been flung into the future, and it's one of the things I have to say, it hasn't been handled with the most grace this season, but I do appreciate the fact that they are addressing, that this crew has been flung into the distant future. Everyone they've ever known is dead, and they seem to be using Detmer as, we can't have everybody struggling because you would never advance the story. So poor Al Detmer became the spokesperson for PTSD. But this episode sees her not only battle it in the beginning, but face it head on. As she pilots Book's ship, she takes manual control again, and obviously it's symbolic for Detmer taking control of her mind again and her feelings again. It's really, really refreshing to see. She's been a character that we all want to see more of. She's been a character that we've all enjoyed what we've seen of, but I hope I wasn't alone when I felt yes. You know, when she's shooting out of the Viridian and then back in the mess hall when she's cheering on, and she cheers on Rin as well. That felt good. That felt a little bit like closure. Another up coming at you, Adira and Stamets. I mean, is everyone just loving this little family that's building together? I did like the way that they addressed. So we knew starting this season that Bluto Barrio was the first non-binary actor to, or excuse me, openly non-binary actor to work on Star Trek. And I was a little bit confused in the first half of the season why they kept referring to them as she. And I sort of took it at face value and I thought, oh, okay. So we've addressed it in this episode. And it's done without, you know, a big hoo-ha. Just Adira turns around and says, they. You know, I haven't felt like a she, I haven't felt like a he. Just, I'm a they, them. And it's, you know, Stamets just goes, okay. I liked it. It took me a second, and let me explain that. My taking a second of it came from, why are we still having this conversation in the 32nd century? But it's a conversation that needs to be had very much so in the 21st century. So, look, absolutely. Really, really liked it. Love the way that Stamets and Adira and Culber are building this family unit. Now, it's not so much, it's, you know, not two dads and a child, even though it kind of is, but it isn't, it is, it isn't. It's just really nice. It's a lovely, heartwarming story that's running through the backbone of this season. Now, we know as well that there is a connection to the music that Gray has passed to Adira. Gray has stopped speaking to Adira. Don't know why. Come on, Gray, be cool. This is a sort of an up-down, okay? Up, I like that the music has a point to it. I like that we're getting to there really quickly. We find out it's a signal. Not only that, we find out it's a distress signal. We triangulate it to a Starfleet ship that's lost in a nebula. Now, does this remind anyone of a certain short trek? The only thing, and I do have to give this down, and I know, I can hear the comments already. Sean, the burn is the season mystery. Stop being annoyed that the burn is... Slow burn. Okay, I've said it. Slow burn. Why did the episode end? You know, we had Adira was able to find Starfleet headquarters in 3 seconds in a previous episode, and yet it's going all the way through the night to use the exact same formula. It's a small down. It's a bit like, you're padding it out, guys. You're padding it out. Anyway. To sum up the episode a little bit, as I say, it's a fairly inconsequential episode. It's perfectly pleasant. You know, perfectly splendid even. And it's just, it's not amazing. It's not terrible in any way. It's not a bad episode. Really, really strong performances from, you know, you got Rin, you've got Detmer, like Dosira. Really, really nice to meet some more members of Book's family. I like how they addressed that as well. It was fine. It was a fine episode. And that's everything for ups and downs for this week. So, spoiler alert now, we're going to go into the trailer and the scene that's been released for next week. So if you want to go spoiler free, please like, share, subscribe, drop in the comments anything that you think I might have missed. That's totally cool, guys. And see you next week. Alright, everyone who's still here. So, the trailer for next week, we know straight away it's going to be a very heavy Giorgio episode, which is good. I like that they're moving to this straight away. Now we see that David Cronenberg is back in next week's episode. So the scene that has been released, there's a lot going on in this. There's a lot to unpack. So really, really quickly, what we get is Cronenberg again, I'm not using the character's name, Cronenberg, it's too good of a name, suspected that Giorgio was going to go through this because he has previous experience in this from, and then a holographic representation of a Betelgeusian comes up, another person who had travelled not only through time but through dimensions. As Cronenberg says, our molecules were meant to exist in the time that they were created. Culber goes, well, we all move through time. Great, because you could hear the argument straight away. And Cronenberg says, yes, but Giorgio moved through time and dimensions, like Betelgeusian, who is in the fantastic gold Starfleet Season 1 of the Next Generation outfit, even though apparently he's from 2379, but, which would be Nemesis, but he's from a timeline that was created by a Romulan mining ship. They've just out and out said, oh, by the way, the Kelvinverse exists. Amazing. Amazing. So I love that. Okay, that is now bringing the family together a little bit. If there's no more mention of it, it'd be a shame, but they've said it. It exists. It's cool. So look, there's a lot to look at next week. Really, really excited for it. Please join us again next week for this. And guys, have a great week. Like, share, subscribe. I have been Seán Ferrick for Trek Culture. Please, you can follow us on Twitter at Trek Culture. You can follow myself at Seán Ferrick. Have a great week, guys. Live long and prosper.